Right, welcome back. Last time, well, Japan went ahead, well, the Fengtian government went ahead and joined the co-prosperity sphere, so the rest of the co-prosperity sphere, so Japan, Siam, and the Princely Federation, went ahead and joined it. The Philippines did too, but their profit doesn't really count. I've just been at the moment busy with dealing with the latest naval invasion from Japan. So yet another bunch of troops to stack wipe, as well as slowly pushing my way through here, which is made somewhat more difficult by, well, lack of troops is the best way to put it. I only have so many troops to go around after all, so... I'm also out of artillery again. So I'm working on getting that set up. Resources again. Again. Shen Bejun, or as many derisively call her, Wang Foren, Madame Wang, is a power unto herself. While Wang dominates the political scene in Nanjing, she has established plenty of bases of her own to shore up her husband's position. As a testament to her power, at one point she is said to have informed a recently appointed mayor that the city is mine. You go there, but do not control anyone. You just represent me to do things. This active lifestyle, however, has forced her to travel frequently, leaving her vulnerable to opponents. Or so they thought. With the help of some local, apparently ex-warlord, commanders, her entourage was ambushed at a parade she was supposed to attend. Under heavy guard, the kidnapping attempt was quickly foiled. The government has begun its investigation, and the finger-pointing has soon followed. Shen has publicly accused the army of orchestrating it, though her opponents have accused her of staging the whole event to gain sympathy and a pretext to arrest her enemies. Despite the clear evidence of wrongdoing, her allies have done damage to her case with the heavy-handed tactics in the immediate aftermath. What is undisputable, however, is how unsafe China is becoming, even in long-liberated regions under KMT rule. Violence against political figures has been normalized, and not everyone is as fortunate enough to have an armed caravan with them everywhere they go. Zhao Enlai has suggested pulling back, arguing revenge is best served cold. Wang, who has been enraged by the incident against his beloved wife, has turned to Li Shukun for a more proactive stance. Li, a former Red Squad member and now head of the Wang household security team, has instead suggested a harsher approach to root out subversives. Going house to house, he hoped to shake out suspects. His influence within the residents faction is sure to increase after his successful protection of the First Lady. Well, that was an incident. Having been utterly vanquished in battlefields across the Asian continent by our victorious armies, the Japanese have retreated from their bases in Manchuria and Korea. With little hope of challenging our regained supremacy on land, diminishing public opinion and fears of a worsening disaster has forced Tokyo to the negotiating table, but not without playing a final card left in their hand, the Imperial Japanese Navy. Citing the threat of continued Japanese blockades and the need for both powers to be strong enough to resist Western imperialism, the terms they have offered have mostly been generous, though frankly just a recognition of the status quo. Our ownership of continental Chinese territory will be recognized and all leases returned. Korea will be vanquished. We will have withdrawn from any occupied members of the co-prosperity sphere. A non-aggression pact will be signed, and Japan will refrain from further meddling in Chinese affairs. Notably missing, however, is the island of Taiwan, which the Japanese fully intend to keep. Given our present inability to channel Japanese domination on the seas and the various other issues our government faces, the prudent action might be to sign this agreement. Japanese blockade of the coastline are no easy task on their end, but will disrupt our trade and economic stability to a crippling degree. However, Taiwan is seen as integral Chinese territory, ignominiously stripped from us after our defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War. A total victory might take years, but would it be worth it to ensure Chinese unification? Yeah. Let them keep their pathetic home islands. All this stuff is mine. Game crashed. Damn it. Okay. Okay, nothing's crashed. Yeah, the peace deal's broken. Okay. In the interest of that being a horrible way to end the campaign, I am using cheats. I am only going to be grabbing territory I would obtain with the peace deal, though. Assuming I can even obtain that territory. I think part of the reason might be that German East Asia is accidentally set as part of the peace deal when it's not really supposed to be. Seriously? Seriously. Okay, maybe I need to make some adjustments before the peace deal. I'm pretty sure German East Asia is actually the cause of these issues. Just to double check, there are no more concessions on there, correct? Well, better put, no concessions owned by German East Asia. Okay, yeah, it was them breaking it. I'm gonna start integrating the mark click. But now I can declare the reunification of China. Or I will be able to. Personally, I think I should wait a little bit longer before trying that. Because I'm going to get major debuffs until I actually do the National Congress. The third repatriated Congress, but I want to finish this focus first. Would be a good point to end on, though. And unequal treaties has been replaced with limited exports. Excellent. Unequal treaties is terrible to work with, so stop buying from the outside. And declare the reunification of China. China has been unified, but at a heavy cost. Thousands, if not millions, have died since the start of the warlord era, families have been divided, and countless displaced from their homes. Yet, in the end, the KMT has emerged as the sole victor, destroying, or outlasting, the half a dozen or so factions that once dared vie for national leadership. The party of Sun Yat-sen is all that remains now, proof, they claim, of the revolution's moral superiority. The truth, as always, is murkier. The party has banded fiercely together against foreign invaders and domestic foes, united by nationalism and revolutionary promises. But even at the height of their accomplishments, there were cracks in this united front. With their external threats receding, the party is as divided as ever. The people, too, have grown tired of the arbitrariness of de facto military rule, with an inconsistent application of civilian political tutelage and military governance across the nation. Surely, the masses are grateful of unification and celebrate the imperialists slinking back to their homelands. But they have also made clear their unwillingness to bear further sacrifice without a clear vision for the future. Matters are coming to a head, and observers are on the lookout for further instability in future political developments. As the party state works to clean up scattered resistance, a growing chorus of voices have demanded another special National Congress held by the KMT, this time with full representation from across the realm. We can now select the Third Repatriated Congress focus, bringing us into the endgame. Responding to public pressures, Wang Jingwei has announced on behalf of the Central Executive Committee plans for a special National Congress to be held in Nanjing about 3 weeks from now. Formerly known as the Third Repatriated National Congress of the KMT, despite its name, it is expected that all members of the LCS and other aligned Republicans will attend. An itinerary has already been prepared with a list of topics to be discussed, though the elephant in the room is the fate of Wang Jingwei himself. The longtime party chairman and president of the Republic has cast a controversial shadow, despite his efforts to portray himself as an uncompromising figure. Many see him as a dictator in the making, increasingly untethered from the collected leadership of the CEC. His list of enemies has grown as he and his allies have worked to consolidate power. Chief among these enemies is the PAC, an inter-party faction led by Song Qingling. She has worked to assemble Wang's rivals into a workable coalition. While much of the military is known to prefer to see Wang gone, so few are willing to endorse an outright coup. Instead, it appears both factions are entering the Third Congress with their knives sharpened. Only a select few know the full extent of either side's plan, but it is certain they will seek to assert dominance in the proceedings. The Third Congress will be the largest party congress yet, with over 1,000 representatives hastily drawn from every province and county. Yet it still seems like the fate of millions will be decided by so few. Destiny beckons. Right. Liberate loyal Korea. Now what? Oh, prospect for resources. I do not have the political power to do all of these decisions. Something I can do in the future. I need my political power for other things now. There's few issues with that. Yep, and it's getting worse. Various factions within the party are taking sides. All of them. January instructions. Suspicious timing. Yeah, there have been some instructions leaked to the press that are supposedly from Paris. You can either expel the MMIC or dismiss the India click, which I think I'm going to go with the India click. Removes my... Oh, joy. The Third National Congress of the Chinese KMT has officially been convened in the grand capital of Nanjing, heralding the start of a new age for the Republic of China. At long last, the Great War of Resistance against the Japanese imperialists had been concluded, and the region of Manchuria restored properly to the Chinese nation. Chairman Wang Jingwei once more took to the stand under the grandiose portrait of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and the flags of the party draped along its sides. What was different, however, was a newly commissioned portrait of the chairman that was placed strategically to the right of the Eternal Premier, a move that was marked with looks of scorn and anger by the members of the PAC. Wang began his speech by thanking the party for following true to the principles of Dr. Sun and for the martyrs who had sacrificed their lives during the War of Resistance. While the revolution's phase of military rule is hereby concluded with the NRA's recent victory over the Japanese, the revolution's party rule must continue, as Wang warned of reactionaries within the ranks of the party who threatened to destabilize it. Nonetheless, a party reshuffle is bound to happen, with the election of a new CEC and chairman anticipated to happen. While he has long remained apolitical from the quarrels of the RCA and the PAC, he concluded his opening remarks that he believed a new reorganization of the parties needed to emulate the same changes to the party in 1924. He denounced the conservatives within the India clique and the Reconstruction faction as degenerate forces stifling the spirit of the reorganization. This spirit has won the Second Northern Expedition. Wang concluded his remarks with a firm acknowledgement that while the united front policy with the Chinese syndicalists was not an aspect of the first reorganization, it was a grave mistake if denunciation of the policy should lead to the rejection of the spirit of reorganization. While scores of cheers rang out from the delegates of the RCA and members of the CSP, only polite applause was heard from the PAC section of the Congress, while members of the World Society and the Reconstruction faction stayed silent. As the nation unites, the party divides. All governing coalitions will come to an end. For years, the LCS have adopted the French political methodology of the syndicalist compromise, with its multiple factions and unions coalescing under a shared alliance of the proletarian struggle. Cooperating with the Chinese KMT in strikes such as the Hong Kong Canton strikes of 1925, as well as the Shanghai Uprising of 1932, the policy of Chinese socialists outside the KMT has long been one of convenience, especially due to the instruction of Paris and London. With the KMT's victory in the Second Northern Expedition and the War of Resistance, the League has grown noticeably in terms of influence and now finds itself being courted by the PAC and the RCA in their struggle for dominance of the party. Among the factions of the LCS, the orthodox faction of the Chinese Syndicalist Party has grown much in strength over the years, with its members, controlling much of the LCS functions and directions. Now they are faced with the decision on whether or not to support Chairman Wang's new declaration of reorganization. With their influence, they can most surely tip the scales of both the PAC and RCA. The PAC will be strengthened proportionate to syndicalist popularity, which is 20% influence. That's a hefty amount, and actually brings it to dominance level, which is not the best place to be. It destabilizes the country slowly. But soon, that will end. Mall delegates align with the opposition. Yep. Lines are being drawn. Yeah, okay, let's dial back a bit. This will actually help my stability. And I don't need that much influence. The Liberals also support the PAC. Not a huge amount, because there isn't that... They don't have that much strength compared to the syndicalists, but yeah. Stability will be reduced, deducted proportionate to revolutionary radicalism. Yep. Popularity will be distributed fully to the China Revival Society. An impeachment vote. So, will the president survive? Probably not, but that's just what I'm thinking here. Yep, the tyrant falls. And all social democratic popularity, or not all of it, but most of it is shifted to radical socialist as Sun Qingling becomes leader. And the balance of power is over. It's time to begin working on Navy stuff. In the days that followed, an eerie calm fell over Nanjing, a quiet before the gathering storm. Wang Jingwei and his wife retreated to their private residence and have not been heard from since. The word on the street is the former chairman has fallen into a deep depression, feeling betrayed by the party he has sacrificed so much for, and has hardly been roused from bed. His allies, however, have not been so meek. Cheng Gongbo and others are determined the RCA will not go down without a fight. They have taken to the airwaves, denouncing the events at the Third Repatriate Congress as an armed coup. RCA member after RCA member testify on RCA-aligned radio channels and newspapers of being intimidated into voting for impeachment. Sordid rumors of an affair between Deng Yanda and the new president have spread, and her opponents have accused her of being a puppet to the military. Already, the executive yuan have received a series of negotiations by Wang appointees, crippling the bureaucracy. The military and across the bureaucracy, officers have openly flouted commands by the new leadership, defying orders from Li Jixan, who has been entrusted by Song as war minister, one of the few appointees she has made so far. The senior leadership of the CSP has waffled in the face of the latest drama, but many of the radicals have begun organizing wildcat strikes along with RCA-aligned unions as chaos engulfs the country. Yeah, things are going wonderfully, aren't they? Japan has declared war on Nepal. What? Stability were deducted proportional to radical socialist popularity. Old radical socialist? No, it looks like it's current. But by a very tiny amount. That's fine by me though, my stability's really high. Wow. The situation worsens and a resolution remains elusive. Cracks have emerged between the victorious factions that ousted Wang Jingwei. Shocking reports of violence and persistent disagreements between the governing coalition has given CSP leadership and many RCA moderates who defected from Wang's camp cold feet. The members of the World Society, who appear to be the most loyal to the PAC's coalition, have also expressed concerns about the authoritarian measures used to suppress the protests even as the government ails. The incorrigible RF are exploiting the moment, with Sun Fo aggressively pushing for the end of tutelage and the holding of new elections. In his words, the only way to resolve the persistent disagreements within the party is to hold a national vote. As if that was not the point of the Third Congress. He and his affiliates have already been seen courting intellectuals and various center-right Republicans, working to corner the non-socialist vote. The general consensus within the CEC is that Sun is delusional if he thinks the government will survive long enough at this rate to hold elections. Every day, the situation seems to be getting worse and worse. And sooner or later, enough party members will defect back to the RCA camp to beg Wang to return to power. Meanwhile, the government remains paralyzed by infighting, unable to present a united vision. Worse yet, War Minister Li Yishen has not been seen since yesterday, at a time when the country needed him most. Well, I don't have any more... Oh, yes I do. He's back. Remove or reform military force. Yep, okay, right. Went through all the military reforms, so my military now fights at the same level as everyone else, at least. Tragic news has reached the Central Executive Committee as the war minister was found dead by a patrol, having been kidnapped and murdered by extremists. After over 2 weeks of unabating instability, this was the last straw. Strong-arming the rest of the CEC, Song Qingling has appointed Deng Yanda as the new commander-in-chief of the NRA, ordering him to take command of the Military Affairs Commission. In rapid succession, arrest warrants have been issued for Wang Jingwei, Chen Gongbo, Zhao Enlai, the Gu brothers, and other RCA grandees for sedition. Warned in advance by remaining loyalists in the Executive Yuan, almost all named targets have fled the capital, southwards to loyal strongholds in Hangzhou. With the help of Mei Siping, governor of Zhejiang, and sympathizers in the army, they have launched a desperate rebellion. Garrisons across the 5 provinces have reported conflicting orders and outright mutinies, while others weigh their options. For the most, however, the army establishment has remained firmly in Song's camp. While in public, the PAC's coalition partners have closed ranks behind President Song and her champion, behind closed doors they have made their resentment clear. They have demanded Song honor her promises of being a much less authoritarian leader than Wang, helping form a consensus rather than rule by fiat. On the other hand, many members of the WMA-RCA have called for decisive action, and the Central Affairs Commission has offered to help a lending hand in bypassing partisan bickering if it helps stabilize the country. With the prospect of civil war looming, Song Qingling narrows on the decision. We need a unity government. In every unity government, there is often a lot of yapping, and the new CEC is a little different. Sun Fo and his RF allies whine about socialist excesses, and hawk constitutionalist principles as it suits them. Gu Mengyu, Pan Yuanchao, and the other RCA moderates struggle to find their bearing in a changing republic, seen as traitors to Wang's camp, and flip-flopping on major issues to compensate. Meanwhile, the LCS remains hopelessly divided, with the orthodox faction of the Chinese Syndicalist Party desperately fighting to control their own party. All the elders in the World Society seem compatible enough, but often find themselves in their own world, high atop their ivory tower. The PAC's control of the military has given them a major source of leverage, forcing these disparate factions to the negotiating table. The infighting within the party has long been detrimental to the war effort, and Song Qingling is unwilling to make the same mistake. Still, as the civilians of the PAC, such as Zhang Bozhun and Peng Zhengxian, have vectored to reach out to their allies, placating at least some of their concerns. Although plenty of it is smoke, there are some valid questions of why we did what we did, and whether or not the RCA's accusations against us have any weight. The diplomatic Shen Yuren, party elder Peng Zemin, and her brother Song Xingwen have all offered to mediate in talks. Ultimately, however, it is up to Song Qingling to demonstrate her leadership. She recognizes that many joined the opposition to Wang's rule for different reasons. Many hated his authoritarian style of rule and feared a party dictatorship under the RCA. Others resented the RCA's corruption, their tendency to twist major institutions to further their own, often personal, ends. As she works to win over her erstwhile allies, she reminds them why they fight. Stress the fight against tyranny. The fight against Huang loyalist forces was hard fought but brief. Under Deng Yanda and Huang Quixang's brilliant leadership, rebelling National Revolutionary Army units were cordoned off and surrounded before they could unite into a cohesive fighting force. The rest were herded into untenable strongholds, besieged by considerably larger PAC-aligned armies. The rebellion had hoped that there would be a great uprising of political department clique-oriented divisions, MMIC-trained young guard units, and independent-minded officers willing to fight back against the new government's overreach. But the Whampoa Military Academy Revolutionary Classmates Association held firm, and Deng Yanda ensured the bulk of the army remained loyal to Song's forces. With Hangzhou and a few other cities surrounded, and with little relief in sight, one by one they were forced to surrender. Unwilling to bear a siege and fearful the PAC would begin shelling the city soon, Wang overruled his lieutenants and ordered his allies to lay down their arms rather than go down in a fiery last stand. Before the city fell, Chen Gongbo, Chen Xiaoyu, and other affiliated radicals took the last few tickets out of the country. The fleet has tacitly allowed them to depart unmolested. The next time a CEC delegation saw Wang and his wife, the former chairman looked haggard. He spoke politely, even to Song, though avoided making eye contact, but seemed resigned to his fate. The broken man inspired pity from some of his old comrades, particularly Gu Mengnu's faction, who have joined with Chen Bijun to plead for charity on his behalf. They recommend we use his international celebrity to send him overseas to live out his days in exile. Others, however, insist this is a ploy by an experienced snake, a demand he brought to justice for once and for all. Congratulations, Ambassador Wang! I wonder where he's going to be sent off to. Spain? Maybe France once they've finished their war, if they survive. In the end, the PAC of the KMT is provisional no more. Having toppled the tyrannical Wang Jingwei, Song Qingling and her allies now stand as masters of reforged China's fate. They have begun the rebranding process, calling themselves the Revolutionary Committee of the KMT in an effort to assert themselves as the legitimate heirs of the party. Continue doing convoys until I can set something proper up. The fallout of the Third Repatriated Congress has not been pretty at all. The political landscape is rapidly changing as people adapt to the new leadership and the power vacuum that has emerged with the RCA's collapse. Many of the factions that had aligned themselves with the PAC are not happy about the way the WMA-RCA flexed the military muscle, and their commitment to the Revolutionary Committee is wavering. Deng Yanda has emerged as an object of scorn for many within the party, jealous or fearful of his seemingly assured status as the second most powerful figure in the nation. Other, more junior-ranked members of the PAC have been rewarded with prominent posts in the new dominated government. Of the military, Huang Quixang, Zhang Yunshan, and Guo Guanzhi have been the most prominent. The civilian wing, Zhang Bozhun, Peng Zixian, Shen Yuren, He Xianin, and Peng Zemin now work to harness the PAC's legislative arm. Minor figures such as Li Xuxiu, Li Xiahao, and Tao Xisen have found themselves in positions of power, and Song has also sought the counsel of her brother Song Ziwen and her brother-in-law Kong Xiangxi, H.H. Kong, in administrative affairs. But the day is not over yet. The focus tree changes. Or, well, it will. Despite that focus being completed, I take a while for the tree to actually appear. And I'll continue integrating the mod click. It'll take a moment before it appears again. Decision. After about a week of intense negotiations, optimism for a quick and easy settlement between the rapidly divergent factions has evaporated. The coalition that had ousted the previous chairman has proven too large and too unwieldy. And now the PAC, now known as Revolutionary Committee, has achieved dominance. Fears have multiplied that they will soon use their influence within the NRA as a cudgel against their political foes. Sun Fo did not wait. This morning he fired the first shot, presenting a proposal called An Outline of the Principles for Controlling Politics During the Period of Political Tutelage and the Methods of Handling Chinese Foreign Policy. In it, he expressed optimism for the end of the military phase of the revolution, but has also condemned what he argues was the growing influence of the military in party affairs. Among other articles, it also states that no active military officer may sit on the CEC, nor can they serve as President of the Republic or Premier of any of the 5 yuans. The most in the PAC would otherwise be amenable to such a proposal. The target was obvious: the champion General Deng Yanda. Sun did not bother to wait for a response before going to the public with his demands. 1. The end of political tutelage. 2. The reallocation of primarily military funding to national reconstruction. 3. The immediate drafting of a constitution. The last demand holds major symbolic importance. The RF had insisted that a constitution could not be implemented until after the completion of tutelage and would require the participation of other parties. Such a demand effectively implies they are seeking the end of the party state far earlier than previously forecasted. If granted, drafting would likely go through the legislative yuan, long a dumping ground for party exiles that seat sinecures, and dominated by the RF. Intellectuals around the country have responded positively about Sun's demands, feeling emboldened to publicly condemn the party's dictatorship. Yep, intellectual opposition needs to be dealt with. Ever since the end of the Third Congress, the nation has been largely in a quiet shock, with most terrified to speak out. Despite the chaos embroiling in the nation over the last few weeks, the general public was kept out of the loop about the specifics of the intra-party dysfunction, left to fend for themselves when it came to choosing the right side. Many who failed to do so have hidden in their homes awaiting for a resolution as soldiers patrolled the streets, themselves wondering what would happen next. It seems Sun Fo was not the only one having doubts about the new government, and multiple groups have agreed to coordinate opposition. But he made the first move either out of a desire to secure leadership, or because of the courage afforded by his untouchable status. In any case, the World Society moved next. Tsai Yuanpai orchestrated the ouster of Song Qingling as president of the China League of Civil Rights, and the League has called for the students to promote discourse against authoritarian rule. Not wanting to be outdone, the CSP Orthodox have pressed their own demands, organizing a strike by the All China Federation of Trade Unions. Protests have poured into the streets, shaking the country once more as the young republic struggles to find its footing. While Sun Fo may have won over the nation's brightest minds, it seems that others have moved for the people's hearts. Popular protests as well. Not wanting a repeat of earlier violence, President Song has placed pressure on negotiators to come up with a favorable resolution to the crisis. She has also ordered the military to show restraint, though the army has yet to be ordered to return to their barracks. The old PAC still dominates the center of KMT political discourse, preventing any easy unification between Sun Fo's rightists and the various leftist opposition groups arrayed against her. Still, matters remain unsettled within the KMT. The RCA has officially been disbanded, though unofficially a rump caucus remains. Left only with Gu Mengyu and his moderates, they have been on the back foot, their future uncertain now that many of their old peers have been arrested or exiled. Seeking the vulnerability of Song's Revolutionary Committee, they have pressed for greater amnesty for the defeated and compromises with the public. They have been joined by many former PAC members who have called on Song and Deng to take decisive action to alleviate tensions and promote dialogue. On the other hand, there are many hardliners who point out that the continuing to recklessly compromise with everyone will simply render the party unable to satisfy anyone. They have taken the form of extremists within the party, mostly CRS-aligned officers, but plenty of WMARCA members have expressed these sentiments in private. This is not to say, of course, that many soldiers want further fighting. Many officers have gone on record opposing a crackdown, and many of the enlisted want to go home soon. And the party's fracturing too. Congress is done. So now this is the new political tree. I'm going to be losing a lot of party popularity, though. Almost all of it, actually. In the process of doing all this. Each focus reduces it by 15%. There are 3 foci. Yeah. What's the permanent capital? Stay in Nanjing. Nanjing's a great place for a capital. Right. So, the war with Japan is finally over. Managed to get all the concessions, although there were crashes, so I did have to grab those from German East Asia. In order to prevent the peace deal from crashing the game, even when I tried to leave the peace deal early, yeah. The only way to fix it was to directly set these provinces as mine via console commands. Which means I probably shouldn't have these, but I'm kind of tired of needing to deal with this, so yeah. So as a result, Korea's free, more or less. I mean, they're under my control. But liberation does not come easy. There's a couple directions I need to go. First off, I need to deal with all these issues. But perhaps I can leave them that for now. I could instead work towards consolidating the frontiers. Yeah. Because I need to deal with this stuff, especially since the Princely Federation has reason to declare war on Tibet, specifically for Taiwan. The thing is, I'm going to need to conquer Tibet eventually, so the sooner I do it, the less likely it will be that I'm going to have to fight against India for this. I really don't want to need to do that. That will get annoying fast. So, not until later. I'm also going to need to find a new field marshal. Oh. Well, I guess he's a field marshal now. Going to need to find a new commander. You'll do fine. That's a doctrine. Right. As for international events, well, Portugal's still holding on somehow. But Spain is definitely managing to push back against France, so... The Internationale seems to have mostly taken back, well, most of France. And Italy has managed to hold on against Germany. Russia's not doing too great. Yeah. The Ottomans' front with Egypt is stable. The Danubian Federation still hasn't intervened in the war. They've also completed their focus tree, so... Admittedly, North America joining in probably was the thing that tipped the scales. Mexico, the US, as well as Canada under the US have all joined in. I also must admit that everything that the Fengtian government owned is now under my control. Well, is now fully cored. I suppose I think most of the concessions, yeah, if not all of them, I've been holding on to them for long enough to have cored them, which is good. Oh, I should remove those garrisons. No need for them now. So the only treaty port left is Macau, which I'll deal with at some point, especially since there's little left of the Entente, but grabbing it back is going to take time. I think I will focus on doing that first. Yeah. It's on the frontiers and then request the return of Macau. Possibly. There's little left of the Entente, and I probably want to deal with it at some point. Although it's especially weird how this stuff hasn't even been touched yet by the co-prosperity sphere. Oh well. It's really not much else to say, honestly. Yeah, political stuff is going to have to happen. Hopefully I can convene the People's Congress. But it will take time. Yeah, that's all for now. I'll see you again next time. Until then.